Hey everyone, this is Julie Reisler. I am graciously your host of the You-est You podcast, and I am so excited about today's guest. You are in for an enormous treat. Let me tell you about Marie Cosgrove. All right, so Marie is a successful entrepreneur with a proven track record of turning falling companies into profit centers. Among her success is being fired from a medical device manufacturing company, you heard me right, specializing in developing devices to help doctors diagnose concussions, traumatic brain injuries, dizziness, and vertigo, to purchasing the same company who had fired her. 8 years later, she continues to lead this company and has taken it international. She also grew a startup medical device company specializing in arterial and vascular diagnostic solutions into a $14 million company within 2 years. Marie has over 15 years experience in the medical industry, where she closely works with top neurologists and medical researchers on the brain's ability to rebuild neural pathways, which until recently was thought to be impossible. A renowned international speaker, she talks about how we can rebuild these neurological connections, strengthen cognitive ability, and unleash the genius mind that is inside all of us. She has trained with various organizations such as the universities, government bodies, Ministry of Education, churches, women's organizations, the U.S. Embassy, and many, many others. She has shared the stage with motivational speaker Les Brown and New York Times bestselling authors Brian Tracy and John Maxwell. Marie serves on the Forbes Coaches Council and as president of the advisory council for the John Maxwell team. She's been featured in Hispanic Executive Magazine and recently won the I Change Nation's Golden Rule Award. Marie is a certified facilitator, instructor on the Round Table Method by Global Priority Solutions, certified human behavioral coach, Dr. Paul Sheely Learning Systems Reclaim the Brilliance certified trainer, certified DISC personality profile, facilitator, business coach, and trainer. She is founder of the Virtue Project, a nonprofit specializing in assisting single moms and troubled teens to learn personal, professional, and entrepreneurial skills for success. Okay, that was a mouthful, but that doesn't even do it justice. Marie, you are such a badass. I love your story. I'm just so honored to have you here today. We have so much to talk about. Thank you for being on this show with me.
I'm honored to be on the show with you. Thank you so much for inviting me as a guest.
All right. So, I remember when I heard your story about the whole situation where you were fired and then came back and bought the company. And it's one of my favorite hope stories. A lot of what we talk about on this podcast is really living into your You-est You, your highest self. Can you share a little bit? Because my guess is, when people hear your bio, it's like, holy mackerel, you have so much that you've done and so much that you share with the world. I'm guessing that it wasn't always like that. And maybe just you could tell us a little bit about the becoming of your You-est You and to where you are today.
Sure. Well, yeah, you're right. I had a challenging time growing up, and it wasn't easy, and I had to overcome a lot of challenges, which I never thought were possible. For example, last weekend, I shared the stage with Les Brown and Nick Vujicic. And if you don't know who Nick is, it's a lot of people pronounce it Vujicic, the guy with no arms and no legs.
Yes.
He's phenomenal.
I've met him. He's amazing.
Yes, he is amazing. And we're doing an event together in September 28th of this year. So we're really excited about that. But I never in a million dreams, I know that sounds weird, but never in a million dreams would I ever dreamed that would be possible because of my childhood. I was born to a mentally ill mother and I had no dad. She was raped. And so I never knew who my dad was, but even more challenging was before I was born, my mom was in a car accident and she was in a coma for 3 months. They said she wasn't going to live. And my grandmother insisted to allow them to leave her on life support for one more day. And then she had to open her eyes and learn how to walk, talk, and how to do everything all over again. And then when she was raped, after her car accident, after she was going through recovery, she ended up getting pregnant, and they wanted to abort because they said there's no way this child is going to be born normal with all the medication she's on, and physically and mentally it's too much for her. And my mother said, no, God saved my life. I'm not going to let them take away the life inside of me. And the doctor said, well, she doesn't know what she's talking about. She's, has brain damage. She has a brain injury. Mentally, she's not there. So they told my grandparents to sign the paperwork to have me aborted. And my grandmother said, I'll support the child regardless of how the child's born. And that child was me. So growing up, I lived with my mother, who had mental illness due to the brain damage for the first 5 years of my life before I went to go live with my grandparents. And it was challenging because kids didn't understand my mom had brain damage. They thought she was just crazy, and they made fun of me, and I was bullied a lot because of my crazy mother, not realizing she had brain damage, and she couldn't. A lot of the decisions that she made, she did not really comprehend what she was doing or the decisions that she was making. And finally, it got too dangerous for me to be with her. There was a situation where I just had to be pulled out, and I went to go live with my grandparents. So I did have a very challenging childhood, and I ended up, doing the, getting married and having kids early. No, didn't have an opportunity to go to college. As soon as I graduated high school, I got married, and I made poor decisions. I got married into a domestic violence situation, and dad lost parental rights. And by the time I was 27, I was divorced twice, with both dads losing parental rights. It was so abusive, and I made that decision twice. So here I was, by the time I was 27, single mom with 4 kids, no child support, no support of any kind, or no one to fall back on. And I had to find a way to make it raising my 4 children as a single mom. And I thought one of those ways would be maybe to get a job in sales, but nobody wanted to give me an opportunity because they said you don't have sales experience. But I did well in business. I was pretty creative. So I had a job with a Fortune 500 company in marketing, but I couldn't sustain that with raising 4 kids, one, a baby, and 4 little ones. 2 had serious medical conditions that cost too much to be able to support by myself, and being able to hold on to a job where I had to take my son to physical therapy twice a week, every week. It made it very challenging. So I thought if I got into sales, I could do it because I could create my own hours. And so it was challenging, having to overcome all of that and get through. And one of the things that helped me get through for me was my children. It was my passion. I never wanted my kids to go through what I went through, and I already felt guilty that they had already gone through that and experienced some of the challenges I experienced growing up because of the abuse that they saw. And so that was really hard for me, and I was determined to make it out of there and become successful for them so that I can offer them a better opportunity. And that's when I practically begged for a job in medical device sales, and they said, you're not going to make it. You're a woman. You can't take the doctors out hunting or fishing. Wow. Or sometimes the doctors want to go to the strip club. You can't take them to the strip club. So how are you going to make sales? You can't develop relationships with physicians. And I learned everything I could in sales. And one of the things that I learned is to use the talents that I did have. Yeah, I didn't have, I wasn't a male. I couldn't take a doctor, invite him out to the strip club or take him out hunting or fishing. But I was disarming, and they told me that was a negative because I was not able to close a deal. But me being disarming, I used that to my advantage. So they didn't see me coming. So I closed a lot of deals. And then within the first year, I was a #1 national sales representative in the nation out of purely male, male dominated industry in capital equipment. Because in capital equipment, where you're talking about equipment that costs between $30,000 to $150,000, it's generally at that time period was mostly male.
Wow. Okay. So take us, I'm like, what I'm thinking about is at some point you had to have done a major internal shift to go from being with men and, domestic violence situation, which is awful. Because to me, what I've learned over the years is it usually, begins with ourselves and our relationship with ourselves. And take us, so, okay. So from that place where that is incredible, that I love that you keep proving them wrong and that you are number one. I mean, that's just, yay for you. Yay that you're a female doing that. I love that you did that using your own strengths. You did not have to take them hunting. You did not have to take them to a strip club, and you were number one. So what happened from there? What occurred after that point? How did you get to where you're now owning it?
Okay. Well, I'm going to take you back because you mentioned something that there had to be a shift, an
Yeah.
internal shift inside
Yeah.
of me. And I think, so I'm going to kind of take you back before
Yeah.
that.
Let's go back. I love it.
When I was married to my second husband, was an executive and very well respected in the community. And I had very low self-confidence because of where I came from. And I'd been told, you don't have a father. He would say things like, you're lucky I married you. You came out of, rape, nobody, and you have 3 kids. Nobody would have wanted you. And just all these, negative feedback that I was getting from him. But the worst part of it was I was on a business trip and I came home early that day. When I came home early, I had saw that he had beat my kids. And that's when I grabbed my stuff and I left. But I had been seeking help from other places. I never trusted my own intuition, but I felt something wasn't quite right. I just could never prove it.
Right.
And I had actually been praying, like, God, if there's something, show me. But he was so well respected, and when friends would come over, he would try to paint me as a crazy person and saying, oh, she's making these accusations, and the kids love me and you're a great dad, and et cetera, et cetera. So when I witnessed that, I just grabbed everything I could and we left. And I sort of became numb. At that point, I was totally numb. I didn't even know. I just wanted out, and I was thankful to be out. And fortunately, my attorney was able to get full custody because of all of the abuse, the physical evidence. He lost parental rights to, I had 1 child with my second husband, and I had 3 with my first. And he lost parental rights to the one we had together. Then I looked inside of myself, and I thought, there's something I'm doing wrong. What am I doing to attract this? And I started shifting my mindset from thinking negatively as to, oh, I have no dad. I was raised by a mentally ill mom. I was embarrassed about my mom. And I started shifting that and being thankful for what I did have. And I started being thankful that we were out of that situation where we're no longer in danger. And I started working on myself. And so that started the shift in my thinking and my thought process, because before I was always a victim. I was a victim because I didn't have a dad. I was a victim because I was poor. I was a victim because, my mom was crazy. And, I was always in a victim mentality mode.
Yeah. And
so when I started shifting that and started to be thankful for things, I started to see opportunities where other people couldn't see opportunities. And I remember family members thinking, what are you going to do now? Look, now you have 4 kids. You're a single mom. You're going to be homeless. And I lost everything. I lost my house, my car. I lost everything. I had nothing. And I was living in the living room floor of my aunt and uncle's home because they didn't have room for me. We were all sleeping on the floor. My oldest son and my daughter took 1 couch, and I was on the floor with a baby and a toddler. And that's where we slept. And I just every day kept thinking, what are the things I'm thankful for? And I started to think more positive, and I started to look at opportunities. Well, I'm already down here. Les Brown always says, you got to be hungry. Well, not only was I hungry, so were my kids. We were all hungry. So that is so true. I started to develop this hunger and this, trying to get out of the situation I was in. And so that began the shift and me working on myself to try to get us out of that situation.
Wow. I mean, I think you said something very important. I believe this fully is that switch from, and you had every right to feel like a victim, listening to your story, it's understandable. It's understandable. So it sounds like when you really started to look at it from a different perspective, different lens. So sleeping on the floor with your two kids, the other two kids are on the couches in your aunt and uncle house. Sounds like you started to look for, okay, what is working well? Where can I be thankful and grateful? Did you have any influences at that time, or was it just internal thinking like, all right, I got to do something different? Like whatever I'm doing is not working. Or did you was there something that, you read or heard of, like, curious what, I'm thinking for people listening, they're probably like, okay, how do I use this? Like, how do I do this? Because I think, and many, many people listening, many of us won't think I'd be, in a situation like that, but still might feel like a victim. It's very easy to do in this society. Very easy.
Well, I started working really early because, by the time I was 16, I was working and going to school because I had to buy my own clothes. I couldn't, nobody was going to buy me any clothes. I started working early, and I developed a very strong work ethic because I would get rewarded at work. And so I looked for mentors within where I worked.
Yeah.
And I read a lot of personal development books so that I could improve myself. I also started reading the Bible a lot. I would read the book of Proverbs and try to gain wisdom from that because, in there it says, a foolish person doesn't look for wisdom. A wise person seeks wisdom from others, And so you always had what the negative and the positive. And so I would take that. And, there's also a Bible verse in Psalms that talks about the wellspring of life. And I was like, well, I didn't have that. What is that? And a lot of that is, thinking positive and being thankful for the things that you do have and being at peace. And so I started to apply some of these principles in my life, and it truly made a shift. And I'm still growing because I'm still applying those. I'm still learning, but it really helped me to grow. And it was interesting this past weekend when I spoke, it was a group of about 600 people at UCLA. And one of the questions posed to me by a woman said, how do you feel today being, in the Me Too movement? You're a minority woman. How can you overcome all of the challenges that we face every day? Women are getting paid less. And how do we compete against men? And I'm like, well, first of all, I don't look at myself as a victim. I don't look at it as, oh, I'm a woman, I'm a minority, because what happens when you do that is you can't see the possibilities. If you want a promotion at work, if you're thinking that way, you're thinking, why even apply? I'm a woman, I'm a minority, I'm not even going to bother. And then it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So I didn't look at it that way. I looked at it, what can I do? What skills do I have that I can use for my advantage? And then when they asked me, well, how do you compete against men? I said, I don't. I use my skill sets, and your skill sets may be different than mine. And so you use what you do have to help you succeed in life. And one girl said that in her work, she had a hard time because there was a guy who always took everybody out to dinner, all the executives, and there was a promotion coming up, but she worked really hard and she knew she deserved it, but she wasn't social. And I said, you don't have to be social. He's social. He uses those skill sets to get a promotion. You use what you do have, emphasize on that, and don't think about what he has, and don't compete against that, because he's using his talents in his way, and that's good for him. But it doesn't mean you're not going to get a promotion and you shouldn't apply because I don't have that skill set. I can't take them out. Just like I couldn't take the guys out fishing and hunting because I'm not a hunter or a fisher. And fisherman or a fisherwoman, right. But fisher person, I guess nowadays you have to be careful, right?
Fishery.
Yeah, I just don't fish, So it was, so that's what I did, as I used my skills and my talents, and I applied that. And I think that everybody has a unique talent. Like your show says, the You-est You, everybody has that. Yep. It's just identifying that instead of trying to compare yourself with someone else or what makes it work for that person. I'll follow their formula. But there's certain principles and values you do follow, but you don't have to follow necessarily their formula because it may not work for you because that's not who you are.
Yeah, that is so powerful. And just speaking, I'm so aligned with what you're saying. And I think of it as we each have our own little like cool briefcase of skills and talents that are unique to ourselves. And what I'm hearing you say is you really dug and found, you looked at, okay, what are mine? And I'm going to utilize mine because those are my gifts and they're different than anybody else's. And to stay in your own lane and to focus on yours because everybody's bag of skills and gifts are different. And I think that is so wise. So many of us can compare ourselves and start to feel like, well, he has that, or she's more social, or, he has better, intelligence skills here. But I love what you said. It's really about, finding your best and then living out that and not worrying about anybody else.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's so important. And that really has helped me tremendously in business and pretty much everything I do.
It's amazing. Marie, it's so amazing. Like I'm still, we're following you now. So where you are, things are starting to shift. You're going from victim to empowered to responsible. Did you have any mentors or pick up mentors along the way that have really influenced you? Because I know you said you read a lot of books, Bible. Like I'm thinking of those listening that are like, okay, what are some of those books? Who are some of those mentors? I can hear it's like, okay, tell me more. Give me more info.
Yes. So I read a lot of, I followed a lot of Zig Ziglar, Brian Tracy. They have amazing books. And
oh, yeah.
I actually became friends with Brian Tracy and then he became my personal mentor. So did Les Brown, John Maxwell.
Wow.
And I learned a lot from all of them. And then again, I learned, I continue to learn every day. For example, I remember I read Zig Ziglar's closing techniques. So I'd apply that all the time. I'm like, oh, this is working. Then I realized, oh, it doesn't work for everybody. And then I realized, oh, well, they're unique too. So you have to customize your message to who you're speaking to.
Yeah.
So I've learned along the way to learn as much as I can from others, but also learn from my experiences and reflect back on the past. There was a point in my life where I was just like, who cares about the past? Think about tomorrow, focus forward and move forward. But then I realized, no, sometimes we do have to look at the past. What worked? What didn't work? Why didn't it work? So that you don't repeat the same mistake again, but you do repeat the successes. Yeah. And that also helped me because in sales, when they didn't want to give me an opportunity, I knew I was successful in marketing. And I said, hey, I have managed a $400 million budget. I have to sell that. That's sales. They'd be like, no, that's not sales. But that gave me the confidence because I was successful in this area. I use that to help propel me to move forward. And every one of us have successes, even if they're small successes. And we tend to overlook those and we tend to look at all of the mistakes we make.
Yeah.
And when we look at the mistakes, we can't push forward because we're stuck there. And sometimes that keeps us stuck.
Oh gosh, I'm so with you. I did a whole training and certification around using this appreciative lens. It's what my last book was. And I think to just say this out loud and you to say, like somebody who's been so successful coming from on the couch, on the floor to where you are now, it's like simple and not always, I wouldn't even say it's not easy. It's simple, but it's often overlooked, I think. And what you're saying is it's just that flip. Like, what are your skills? I love what you said, repeat the successes. We're going to make a note of that. That's a great quotable because like learn from the failures and repeat the successes, don't repeat the failures, right. Learn from them. That is, so how did you go from, I know that your story, you were fired and then 2 years later you bought the company. Is that what happened?
So when I was fired, basically I thought I was getting a promotion. I got called from the owners saying that they were really proud of me and everything that I was doing. And they said, we're going to put you on, salary. And the salary they offered was $150,000 a year. And I thought, well, I can't accept that. I had my kids' medical expenses were huge, or like $10,000 a month. I could not afford to take that offer. And I said, no, I can't afford to do it. And then they said, well, then you can't sell for us and we're letting you go. So I went from making almost $1 million a year to zero and losing it all over again. And I was passionate about starting something, and I thought, well, maybe I could sell for other people. So I started selling for other people, but then starting my own company.
Mm.
And then I got FDA clearance on a device that I pulled together using my contacts with the doctors that I had worked with. So it took us 2 years to get clinical trials, get FDA clearance, get that done. And I built that up. And once I built that up, I got a call about 2 years later, and I was doing very well with the other company, built it to a $14 million company. And then I get a call from one of the owners of the company that fired me. And they said, would you be interested in investing in our company? And I thought, well, let me look at your books. So I took our accountant, and we flew up to corporate headquarters. We look at all the finances, and he comes up to me and he says, look at the sales. I go, yeah, they were good this year. And he goes, yeah, they were amazing. He goes, you know who did the most of those sales? I'm like, who? It was you. You did 80% of those sales. I'm like, I don't want to invest in the company. I want to buy the company. And so after 6 months of negotiations, I purchased the company.
Unbelievable. That is, all right, everyone listening. I just want to say I have goosebumps. And what I love is that to never lose hope ever, and that anything is possible. But you had to switch. You had to switch how you were seeing yourself. You had to switch how you were seeing the world. This is such a beautiful story, Marie. And I know since then, I mean, you've skyrocketed with what you're doing. And now you speak. Talk a little, like what, I guess today, like what lights you up today? What makes you feel enlivened and passionate? And what are you working towards now?
I love when I get to speak and someone comes up to me and tells me how I've impacted them or made a shift in their life. That really touches me. I never wanted to do public speaking ever. And I never even thought about it. And I remember one time this lady came up to me, and she came to my office and she said, how did you become CEO? And I told her, well, the story, I got fired about the company, etc. I didn't think any big deal about it. Well, she scheduled me to speak to a group of women, and I'm thinking like 30 women. She worked at the library, and I figured the library, fine, small round table setting, no big deal. Well, she did a press release and put it in the paper and shared my story in the paper, and they got a venue, and there were 120 women. And they said, we came to be inspired. And I'm like, inspired? I'm not an inspirational speaker. And I'm thinking, oh boy, I'm, prepared to talk about leadership or these other things, because I was John Maxwell certified in leadership. And so then I ended up sharing my story and being vulnerable. And I remember a young lady came up to me, and she had suffered a stroke. And she said, I read about you in the paper, and I really wanted to kill myself. But after reading your story, so I'm going to give this lady a try. I'm going to go listen to her, see what she has to say. She goes, after hearing you speak, you've empowered me. She says, I'm not going to kill myself. You've given me or showed me what my purpose is, and I do have a purpose in life, and
Wow.
I'm going to continue my education. And she had been enrolled in physical therapy, and she wanted to do that because she had a stroke and she couldn't move her left arm. And so she felt, how can I be a physical therapist if I'm already broken myself? And so she became encouraged to go back to school. And it's stories like that really touched me and encouraged me to speak and to help others. And so that is really very fulfilling for me.
Wow. Goodness, Marie, you're like, it's just, I love your story also because, you've just shown what can happen when you take responsibility, when you change the way you look at things, but also now getting to speak. I mean, being on the stage with Les Brown, I don't know, for those listening, if you don't know Les Brown, check him out. I mean, John Maxwell, Brian Tracy, these are some of my favorites. Jim Rohn, Zig Ziglar, who obviously are no longer present with us anymore, but their works are. How did you get to be in a sphere with Brian Tracy, with John Maxwell? How did you create that? I mean, that's a pretty incredible thing to have Brian Tracy as a mentor. I know you mentioned that earlier. For those who are like, I want these people as mentors, or how do you, maybe we can talk about mentorship for a minute, because I believe in that also. It's very important.
Absolutely. And I get mentored by, everyday people that are not well known. And I've learned a lot more from very valuable lessons from them as well. So yeah, I highly recommend seeking out mentors. When I purchased my company, I guess I would say several years into running the company, I ran into some major challenges. Competitors were really upset that we were beating them in the marketplace. So it was very, very challenging, and I wanted to be a better leader. So I joined the John Maxwell team so I can learn to be a better leader and have access to the leadership tools to bring onto my team and to help me grow and how to handle these situations. And so that's sort of how I ended up on the stage with John Maxwell. And Les Brown, how that happened is one of my distributors he wanted to be a speaker. So he sought out mentorship from Les Brown, signed up to his program, and him and Les Brown were speaking at an event. And Les Brown asked him, how did you get into medical? And he says, well, my friend Marie, but then she got fired and bought the company, etc., and shared the story. And Les Brown says, call her right now. So then the phone rings and it's Les Brown. And I'm like, Les Brown? And it was, I couldn't talk at that moment because it was a weekend. I had my son with me, and this was several years back. He's my little one. I got married at 40 or 39, had a child at 40 because my husband had no children. So after being single since I was 27 till my 40s, my kids were already kind of grown. It was a big shift. And so I have now this child, he's 9 now, but at the time he was like 6 or so. And I have a pen, and we were at the store. So my friend says, Les said for you to call him and you never called him back. I said, yeah, I didn't get to write down his number. But I'm thinking, it's Les Brown. Are you kidding me? Like, I'm not going to call him. And then the next day, it was a Sunday, and my phone's ringing, and I'm at church, and my son's in a play. And it says, Las Vegas, Nevada. And I'm like, oh, one of those crank calls. I kept rejecting, but it kept ringing and ringing. I'm like, well, maybe it's an emergency. So I answer the phone, and it's Les Brown. And I'm like, oh, I'll call you later. I'm at church. And then my husband's like, you just hung up on Les Brown? And I'm like, yeah, our son's, he's doing a play. So I called him later that evening. He says, I'm actually in Ohio. I'm in Columbus, and I'm going to go to your office. I'm like, okay, sure. And I didn't expect it. And then in my office, I had glass all on one side, and I see Les Brown drive up, and I'm like, Les Brown is here. Unbelievable. He did. He showed up at my office, and then we've been friends ever since.
That's crazy. And what did you say?
Yeah, I hired him to mentor me, and so he kept saying, you need to be speaking, you need to speak. And I said, well, will you mentor me? He said, yeah. So I wrote him a check, and ever since then, he's been mentoring me.
Wow. I saw that one of the interviews that you did with him, and I was like, okay, I must interview. I love him. I mean, I'd love to interview him, but I was like, I want her. Like, that's a badass there. She's just incredible. That's such a great story. Again, you know what I love about you? It's like, just shows like, it doesn't matter for anyone listening. If you're in a rough spot, it doesn't mean you're homeless or on a couch, but maybe you feel that way in your career or your health, or you feel like that. You feel like you're in kind of a despondent or upsetting or frustrating or mediocre place. What I love is you went, you bit by bit shifted yourself. And as you shifted your beliefs in self and focused on what you're grateful for, that changed your whole world to the point where today, as a super, successful but gracious, loving, giving back, serving woman in business that has learned to utilize your gifts and skills and teach others, and now connected with these incredible mentors and teachers. I mean, it just shows what's possible. I feel like anyone listening, like, just understand, no matter where you are right now, it doesn't mean that's where you're going to be. I don't know if you have any other thoughts, but you're just so inspirational, Marie.
Thank you. And yeah, that is so true. Exactly what you said. Doesn't matter where you came from or your current situation right now. It does not matter how bleak it may seem or how dark it may seem. It can totally shift for you, but you've got to want to make that shift, and you have to start changing your thought process. So when you have a negative thought, you have to shift into a positive thought. And one of the easiest ways, and it sounds as simple as being thankful.
Yeah.
Thankful for what you do have right now. And slowly things will start to shift for you.
Love that. We're going to have a whole bunch of show notes. I've been taking notes because I know sometimes people listen in the car or while they're doing other things. And for all of you listening, like, don't worry, I've got all these little nuggets because you're fantastic. I don't want to miss anything. Is there any, how can all the our lovely listeners and friends that are tuning in, how can they find you, Marie, and watch you speak or get in your world?
Sure. You can follow me on Instagram. I'm on just Marie Cosgrove on Instagram or Facebook. And, since I am running a manufacturing company, I don't do speaking full time, but I will be posting on there when I have speaking events, the public speaking events. So
Awesome.
that, for example, we have the one with Nick Vujicic, September 28th in Texas. And I'll be posting that. And we have some other events coming up. I have one May 10th through 12th in Canada, the Niagara Falls side, and I'll be posting that on there, and so people can get updates.
That is awesome. Nick is actually, we're in a similar community based around the Miracle Morning. I don't know if you've read that book by Hal Elrod. And he's part of the certification I was talking about with appreciative inquiry. He's in that as well. Just so enamored with him, and goodness, talk about reframing and being thankful. I mean, he's amazing. He could light up a room. He's so energetic. And you, my dear, you do the same. I am so grateful to you and honored that you were able to share yourself and vulnerably. And I just, you're a real gift, and you're just such a great model and inspiration of what's possible. I love your story. And part of me wants to say, I'm just so sorry you had to go through that growing up. And I would imagine, that maybe some of the biggest gifts have come out of that experience.
Yeah, I used to be really, I guess, felt sorry for myself for going through all the experiences. Now I'm thankful for the experiences I've gone through, because sometimes out of, adversity, the most beautiful experiences come out of adversity in life. And life truly is very fulfilling, even after you've come through some of these troubled times and bad experiences.
Such a great place just to drop the mic right there. No matter where you've been, I mean, just listen to Marie, listen to this again and again. And awesome. I will have your info so people can find you and keep up to date with when you're speaking publicly. And you're just a blessing. Thank you so much for your time and your beautiful spirit, and just sharing. I feel like everyone who tunes in is going to get some serious wisdom from you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I so appreciate being on your show. Thank you.